Welcome to Spotlight TV. I'm your host, Emily Zubi, and we have a guest. It's been a couple weeks, so I am excited to be back with you. We had our big event, and we have one of our CEO Circle members with us today. She is fabulous. She's come up with a concept that, wait till you hear about this, because I fell in love with it immediately. So today on the show, we have Dr. Johanny de la Paz. She's the founder and CEO of HRme. Welcome, Johanny. I'm so happy to have you.
Yes, likewise. Thank you so much for having me on the show, and it's been a pleasure to meet you.
So let's start with, before we get into the amazing concept that HRme is, tell me a little bit about your story, your journey that leads up to how you started this.
Absolutely. Well, truth be told, I was not meant to be in human resources. I was actually going to be a criminal attorney. And while I was pursuing my bachelor's degree in pre-law, I started my first job at 19 years old at an amazing organization, a global staffing organization, Allegiance Group. And that's how I started to get into the HR world. And I had a change of heart when I had finished my bachelor's, went ahead and got my master's degree in business. And it all started from there. Change of heart, loved the whole concept of the legalities, the regulations, and also the employer and employee sides of things. And that just won my heart over.
And I didn't know that about you. So this concept of HRme, yes. What was the light bulb moment?
The light bulb moment was COVID. I've been in corporate America for over 15 years, and through COVID, I had a few colleagues of mine who decided to leave corporate America and open their own business. As they were doing that, they were put in a position where, oh my gosh, I don't know how to get permits. I don't know the regulations in Illinois. I don't know the regulations in California, which is a whole different world in California. And they started reaching out to me because of, I had the experience, the scholar experience from my doctoral degree. I then later pursued a doctoral degree in business, and the expansive experience that I had in corporate America. And all these colleagues of mine started, reaching out to me. I was a subject matter expert, and the light bulb went up. Said, wait, hold on. I want to do that as well. I want to jump on that ship as well. And at the same time of that light bulb going up, I noticed how hard it was for small businesses, right, to get a budget, to get funding, to have the learning ropes on how to go about, what do I need to do? What do I need to have? What regulations? What is going to get me out of trouble, or what is not going to get me into trouble? And of course, small businesses do not have a budget to have an HR person. Small businesses do it all. You're the founder and CEO does it all, right? They are
switch the hats.
Yeah, exactly. They are the ones who deal with accounting, with the employees, with operations. And that is something that is crucial. Operations has to be completely divided from human resources and anything that has to do with compliance. And that was the lightning shining moment for me. And it's been wonderful ever since.
That's incredible. And what I love, let's talk about the subscription service, yes. Because when you told me this, and I very early on in my career, when I launched an airline, mm-hmm. I was actually in what they call the HR area. You had to learn everything.
Right.
But I got very interested in recruiting and training. And it was, the only time, and I love training, mm-hmm. but probably even more than recruiting, mm-hmm. But there are so many legalities, and there are so many things. It doesn't matter what industry it is, but just the whole hiring and managing of people, the all of it.
Right.
So you have taken, I think, what can be a very complicated, very technical, one filled with all kinds of legalities. As I told you, when I heard your concept, one legal problem can cost you your business.
Absolutely.
Let's face it. So you don't want to, unfortunately, but you don't want to make those mistakes. But I love the idea of making it affordable for companies that can have it. Right. Through a subscription. I think it's brilliant. So let's talk about that.
Yes. So it's one package. Everyone who will subscribe to the subscription receives all the services. The difference is on the head count. So if a small business has a 0 because 0, you still need to be compliant, even if you have you as an employee, right? If you're just a business, just for you having an establishment, you need to be compliant with the law of the prospective state. And so the subscription becomes different as part of the headcount. As the business grows and as the business has more employees, then obviously the pricing goes up. But they all take advantage of the same services, which is, we prep you from the beginning to end. Legal is also included. We have attorneys that work under HRme, and they will be your go-to person for any employment law legal issues. Compliance, posters, federal regulations, FMLA, if you get to that point where you're at 45 to 55 employees, ACA, ADA, there are so many regulations.
Being compliant.
Yeah, being compliant
is a big deal.
It's a very, very big deal. And not just with these agencies, but the IRS, right? You need to make sure your payroll is audited. You need to make sure that you are properly distributing these deductions that you're taking off from employees' W-2s to the proper funding in the IRS. So we take care of all those headaches for the owner. Mm-hmm. And it's worked out amazing. They have peace of mind. Now they get to just be creative. They just get to, deal with operations and all of, complaints, issues, culture building, everything and anything that deals with employees and legalities go into our side.
So I know you can't give us a particular example and confidentiality, but what would you say has been your shining star example of maybe a headache spared, or just, kind of that badge of honor that you would say, like, well, this is what we did.
Right. Well, unfortunately, right. I have a client who recently joined HRme, and he was not in compliant, right? He's in a restaurant industry, and I think it must have been a week after we joined. An inspector went into his restaurant, and we had just finished doing everything that was supposed to be put up, right? All the posters, all the, compliance, all the notes, giving employee trainings, and inspectors just walk into your place of business without any notice. And they just ask for who does your HR, who's responsible. And of course, the person responsible for it has no idea, right? Because they're business owners. They are concerned with the flow and revenue of the business. So that was great for us. We caught it. That was destiny or luck for us. And that saved them probably $100,000, because that person, if a person would have walked in and seen that it was non-compliant, one poster, just missing one poster, could lead to thousands of dollars.
Wow, it's a little scary, but yes. So who would you say is your perfect client? I mean, we have an incredible audience out there.
Right.
What industries, who are you looking to branch out to? Who's still needed in the repertoire of companies?
Right. So the beauty of HR is that we are in every single industry. We have hospitality, restaurant, nightclubs. Those are my worst, I must say. Nightclubs and restaurants.
I would think so.
Yes, absolutely. But we're getting there. They're slowly but surely getting to be compliant. And you know what? It's not that they're my worst. It's just that they didn't know, right? Once they know and they see what comes out of it, not having these things and not having someone solely focused on what they need, they become better. But my best clients would be engineering, and of course, legal firms.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. I have a referral for you then. So my CPA, she's in our circle, and Audrey Penny. Actually, it's her birthday coming up. So I will tell you that she really is so amazing because she is always saying me, like making sure I'm compliant, my taxes, I mean, she's on top of me for everything. She's my eyes and ears. So I'm curious how you interface with these CPAs and those accountants and, because it's separate, right?
Right.
So do you work with them a lot in order to make sure, like you may have your checklist. How does that work?
We work hand in hand with CPAs, particularly small businesses. They outsource a lot of their accounting to big corporations such as Markham. So we partner with them. They get these, for example, Markham's and your CPA, they deal with your accounting and they deal with your filings, right? They are your eyes and ears with being compliant with that IRS aspect of things. But they're not the ones looking for the right HRS system. They're not the ones making sure that employees have their rights put on the wall. They're not the ones creating policies and procedures. They're not the ones creating handbooks. They're not the ones dealing with the day-to-day information and issues that go on in a business. They're not the one approving an FMLA. I've noticed that a lot of small businesses just say, no, my CPA does it all. I'm like, no. They are great and they do what they're supposed to do, but they should not be held accountable for many other things that are not just within their realm.
So you just reminded me because we had a CEO Circle Lunchtime Lab the month before, and Michelle Palaz, who's with Mark Madigal, I'm going to say the name wrong, but a law firm, and she created a handbook. And what I loved about the employee handbook, she's considered the glue.
Right.
She's a CEO and does, all the hiring, does everything. But what I loved about her handbook was it was so creative and done with a lot of pictures, but it was so clear, and it addressed culture and all those other things. Like it made you want to read it.
Right.
And she brought it to our circle as an example.
Right.
But one thing I became aware of is how many companies don't even have an employee handbook.
A lot. And it's
more so than not.
Oh my gosh. Yes. But it's not just having the handbook, right? It's making sure that the person you hired acknowledge that they received the handbook. The handbook does me no good when I'm in court, right? And an employee is saying, well, there's favoritism, or why do I have less PTO than this person? Right. This is just a quick example. I have to go back to the handbook, right? Because a company has to ensure that not only the handbook is there, but that you were given the handbook and that you acknowledge and signed that you received it. Whether the person read it or not, that's a different story, but there has to be a proof of signature that the person received it, along with policies and procedures.
That's amazing. And so I've seen, especially, we have 6,000 Miami Women Who Rock, and now expanding into Boca, as you know, in Palm Beach, which you will be an integral part of and a leader. But one of the things that I want to ask you about are some of the things that I have heard really impact women in hiring practices and things that are still very much illegal, in terms of maternity leave or illness or, women wearing so many different hats and age discrimination. Yes. What would you say are the most common ones where you see women's rights being violated?
Right. First and foremost, let's talk about the age. And that was a shock moment for me when I started dealing with small businesses, right? The applications, let's just start there. The applications should never have your birthday. You should never, an employer should never ask for how old you are. They should never ask for when you finish college, because then you can figure out your age, right? And they should never ask for where you're from, right? If you are applying to a restaurant who specializes in Argentinian cuisine, there's no reason why that restaurant should have on the application, where are you from? Right? Because right there, it becomes a conflict of interest. Right. So then the applicant feels, well, I was not hired because I was not Argentinian. And that should not be the case. You should be hired or not hired due to skills, not because of age or, race, gender, or anything like that.
All those things. I am very, when I was working on Wall Street, my last name was Phillips, was my first married name. And so they didn't know I was Latina.
Right. Oh.
And, and they when they found out, they were really quite shocked. And like, we didn't know. We thought you were, Italian. You look Italian. I'm like, no, I'm Puerto Rican Irish. And they're like, oh, maybe you can help us on Culture Day, make some rice and beans.
Yes, right.
I mean,
right.
they actually said that,
but that's
back in the day.
No, but it's not back in the day. It's still happening. And again, it's ignorance, but not calling them ignorant, right? It's just that they don't know the rules, the regulations, what not to say, right? I actually created a playbook for managers so that when they're interviewing candidates, what to say and what not to say. And they found it amazing because the notes that I was seeing were just, not compliant. Let's just say that. And, but no, that comment was not right, to say. And some people might take it as, oh, how nice he wants me to, or she wants me to provide my culture cuisine. But some might take it as an offensive.
Right, absolutely. So Dr. Johanny de la Paz.
Yes.
Johanny, you got your doctorate degree. Tell me, what made you go back to school? I want to hear about that.
Sure. So after completing my master's, completing my master's, took about 2 years off, right? Because I did bachelor's and master's right after. Don't recommend it. Kind of take some time off. Throughout my entire college and university life, I was having a full-time job. I had just gotten
Where'd you go to school?
St. Thomas University here.
Love St. Thomas.
Yes. It's great. Catholic, small, you have your full attention. Love my school. And so finished my master's, happened to had just gotten promoted to an executive role, corporate America. And I just decided to go back and enroll to a 5-year doctoral program. And I must say that was very, very challenging because at the time I was an executive for a multi-state corporation, which meant that I had to travel a lot. And, juggling doctorate degree and research and a dissertation and travels at a 5 a.m. flight is very, very challenging. But nonetheless, I completed it. And then I saw myself with this immense amount of knowledge, right, from a scholar knowledge and experience in the real world knowledge. And I wanted to combine the two. And then, as I said earlier, COVID happened, and that was my spark.
And you got the chance.
Yes, got the spark.
Be careful what you ask for. The world gives it to
you. Absolutely.
A law of attraction.
Absolutely.
So we're, as you know, we're doing this coffee table book of leaders, and I have been fascinated. We're in the editorial phase, and I've been looking at all these answers coming in, and we have an editor-in-chief. And so what would you say is your secret sauce to leadership? Like, if you had to describe your leadership style and the things that really work for you and make you thrive as a leader, and maybe some of the things that you've noticed now working with, major companies.
Absolutely. For me, what has always worked is not micromanaging staff. I solely believe that if you hire someone, you need to trust that person to be able to provide the work and the project or whatever it is that you're giving that person to do. So I am very anti-micromanaging. I'm very pro-mentoring, right? Once you're a leader, your goal is no longer to continue to go up. It's to bring these people that are under you up to your level and build a good succession planning strategy.
I love that. Let's talk about you personally. What would you say now to your younger self?
To my younger self, I would say be more patient. Don't start things quickly, right? And do more research and follow more follow what the truth is versus what your emotions are, because that could get you into trouble. particularly when you're in a position of power. A lot of people are going to come to you and you're going to feel bad and you're going to believe what is being told to you. And in the end, it's not. So patient, due diligence, deep due diligence before making sure that you go whichever way you're intending to go.
You strike me as so disciplined, and from the very first conversation that we had, like you're very, you're working on your brochure, you're doing your materials, and so I don't know, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we're talking, we're here again.
Right.
What's changed?
5 years from now, I would like for HRme to expand to other countries, particularly Dominican Republic. I have a large group of network HR professionals in the Dominican Republic, although completely different laws, right? I mean, each state where we live, there's different laws, but I would love to expand it to international.
Oh, that's
my
great.
goal.
That's great.
I already have Puerto Rico, but that's not international. Although Puerto Rico, it's very, very tough on laws, extremely. So
I didn't know that. And then so after Dominican Republic, where else on the map would be your
Dominican Republic?
Yeah, give me your top 5 countries.
Colombia. So number 1, Dominican Republic, Colombia, Peru, Chile, Argentina, and I would say Uruguay.
Wonderful.
Yes.
That's I love Uruguay. I've been to Uruguay.
No, I have never been to Uruguay, but my doctorate degree is in international business. So I have, knowledge of how things work, and how they play out in other countries. And those my top 5 countries are the ones that I think, as far as legalities and employment laws are very well defined.
That's wonderful. I'll have to introduce you to some people. When I was working with MTV, we did Playa MTV. Nice. So went down to Uruguay, and it was the first time I'd ever been, and I was just absolutely. But Playa MTV, Ski MTV, all those countries. You did it all. Yeah, I mean, I went to probably 20 Latin American countries. I mean, the only one. I mean, there were a couple places. I never got to Colombia. Believe it or not, I mean, at the time it was, So, I mean, there's still a few on my bucket list, but
absolutely.
I love that. Yes. And what do you do to relax? So, I mean, because you have a pretty intense career. Yes. And I imagine that, at times you have to.
We all do, right? We all have, and to go on that topic, another advice would be work life. I didn't have any. And as you know, coming from corporate America, I don't think that really truly exists. Although we promote it, right? HR promotes it, but we are the ones who have it the least. So what I do in my downtime, I live in a beach town. So the beach for me is my haven. And travel. I love to travel. So travel, beach, and I have to have my coffee.
Coffee. I could make a coffee commercial. I am nothing without coffee in the morning. I sometimes just even try to tell myself, I go running in the morning. I'm usually like around the golf course sometime around 5:30 in the morning. And, coffee is,
number 1. I mean, it's all mental, but it's already stuck in our mind.
And what about people that don't drink it? I have a good friend. Yeah. She does not drink coffee. I go, I just don't get it.
Me either.
I know 2 people actually that don't drink coffee. And I'm like, okay, well,
I know quite a bit. I know quite a bit. And it's weird at first, but hey, they drink tea. Right. And they have
something else that has caffeine. Something else has caffeine. So I'm really excited for what you're creating and what you're doing. And I love your materials. I love the name, HRme. Yes. How'd you come up with the name?
Because it's easy. You're not going to forget. And when a business owner is going crazy, around operations and saying, let's call HRme, because we are an expansion of your business. It's HRme.
That's, if I were to call one of the clients that have been with you the longest and said, describe Johanny to me, what would they say?
She or he would say she's persistent. Very. At first, they would run away from me because I'm like, we need to get this. I need that. I'm so programmed of, deadlines. So deadlines to me means the world. And small businesses, obviously, they're not too much in tune with that, right? Because they have a million things going on. So they would say persistent, detail-oriented, and get things done.
Wonderful.
Yes.
And social media, let's talk about that, because I have heard major issues with hiring and social media. Is it legal? Can you do it? Check out, LinkedIn versus Instagram.
Right.
You're looking to hire someone, all of a sudden you look at their Instagram and find out they have an OnlyFans account.
I've gone through it all.
A friend of mine, she goes, that fans only thing? I go, you mean OnlyFans? She goes, do you know about this? I said, I've heard about it. I've heard about it. Yeah. So what's the what would you say is like the important information that you need to know about hiring and social media?
Well, there's a big difference between social media when you're at a candidate stage and social media when you are working already for the company. So when you are at a candidate stage, there is no law that prevents employers to look you up, right? That's why you should have your account private, right? But I mean, if you're in LinkedIn, that's the first thing we're going to do as a recruiter or as anyone who's trying to get some type of, how is this candidate before we go into a panel interview. So that's not illegal. However, when you are now working for the company, that company has to have a policy, right? It all goes back to a policy. If the company does not have a policy, then there's nothing that they can do. So for example, if the company does not have a policy, and then, because I've gone through this before, we get a video sent to us saying, hey, your employee wearing your name, right, is doing things that are not too good in social media. What do? There's no policy. The employee didn't know she was, or he was not supposed to do that. So that's why policies are so, so, so important.
But if it's in the handbook, signed off on it,
that is the law.
That's the Bible. Not wear the logo of the company while filming a TikTok.
Correct. Exactly. Exactly. But you need to have that policy. And I've been in situations where we've not had the policy, and the person has just been reprimanded and talked to. And once you have the policy, it's, well, this is termination because you knew. So that's the big difference.
Goes back to having that handbook. So we have a couple minutes left on the show. I want to turn it over to you, and for you to give us your commercial, how someone reaches you, where to reach you, your website, your social media, and any of the information, So this is your minute commercial.
Yes. So HRme, however, the website is HRmenow.com. You can reach me at 305-218-9535. Social media is being worked on as we speak, because in our line of business, social media doesn't really flow with what we do. We're more into regulations and legalities, and it's a great concept for any person who is starting a business. You don't need to have an employee. That's why when I first started, I said 0 employees. Right? You need to make sure that you have all your lines, properly placed for you to continue to have your own business. And we do everything. We do everything for you. So you can forget about it.
Let's just give a range of price, because I was very impressed with how reasonably priced you are given what you do. So just if someone's out there thinking like, oh, well, this sounds really expensive and I can't afford it, I think you've already, when we were talking, you've already thought of that, because you want to make it it's part of your mission to make this accessible. So why don't you give the listeners a range?
A small business from 0 to 4 employees, that's only going to be $297 a month.
$297 to protect yourself from a potential $100,000 lawsuit.
Exactly. As the headcount goes up, the next package would be $599. The next package of 15 to 20, it's $799. And I want to keep those prices consistent. We also have retainer base for more in-depth, situations. But for the subscription base, I want to keep it that way, because the whole purpose of having HRme is to help the business. And if I put it too pricey, then it will defeat the purpose.
Beautiful mission, beautiful vision, and you're beautiful inside and out. And
Thank you.
I think you have the right personality for what you do, because I could tell that you're like, okay, let's talk about that, let's find out, and you've got that inquisitive. So I can't wait to join you on your journey and to do some things up in Palm Beach, and I'm really excited for the future. Thank you so much for being on Spotlight TV. We thank you for joining joining us again. We've had Dr. Johanny de la Paz with HRme founder and CEO. We will see you next week on Spotlight, and very grateful to community newspapers, our producers, and I love this partnership. We come to you with a Spotlight TV, and you get to see it live on YouTube and Facebook, and meet amazing leaders in our community. We'll see you next week on Spotlight.